We are in the Olympic Sculpture Park today with Sarah Bergmann, who's an artist who lives and works in Seattle and has had a really fascinating career. She started out as a painter, and more recently, she will tell us about this more, has embarked on a fascinating project that combines ideas relating to art, ecology, community engagement, various design questions, both regular design and landscape design, into one really fascinating project, and it is called the Pollinator Pathway. And what we have here at the Olympic Sculpture Park is, in a way, we call it a portal to the Pollinator Pathway because it gives an introduction to this larger project. It's an opportunity to people who come and visit the park also to get involved. So I want to ask Sarah, how did you think of this project? And what does it entail?
So the Pollinator Pathway is a mile-long corridor that I'm building across Seattle. It's a mile by 12 feet. It runs between two disparate green spaces, so it runs from Seattle University's campus. And Seattle U is known for their integrated pest management. They don't use any pesticides on their campus. And on the other end is a small woods called Nora's Woods, and that's all native plants. It's a beautiful little woods. And so the idea is to connect these two green spaces by sort of increasing the ecological activity between them. So I work with each homeowner along this project and ask them if they would like a garden, and then we design the garden working with our plant list and what their preferences are. And then we bring out a whole host of volunteers to work on these gardens. I really wanted this project to be a platform for a number of different fields, and specifically I wanted it to be monitored and I wanted science behind it. And so that is a very important part of the project for me, that I'm working with people in these different with these different backgrounds. So I work with graphic designers and with garden designers and scientists, and then with all these homeowners on the project, as well as these volunteers.
Who are some of the designers you've been working with, I guess mostly here in Seattle? I mean, who are they? What are their various roles in this project?
Sure. So one of them isn't in Seattle. She's in upstate New York, and she is a garden designer. Her name is Robin Ginak, and we do our garden design all via Google Earth and photography, which is, I think, a really fun way to work. Lots of phone calls to understand the exact shading happening, and then she comes out twice a year and visits the project to make sure that we're sort of on track. All of the aesthetics on the project are designed by Studio Matthews, and when you're here you can read about the history of the honeybee and my research on the project, as well as some information about the native pollinators that I've become interested in.
You actually lay out a really long timeline for how honeybees were even introduced to North America, but also some of the troubles that they've been running into.
The honeybee is actually a non-native species. It arrived here a couple hundred years ago. It was brought by Europeans, and it originally is a Eurasian species, and we've had a really, really long relationship with the honeybee. But the honeybee has been getting into a fair bit of trouble lately. It's got a number of different mites and diseases in the last 20 years or so. And then in addition, a more alarming thing has been happening to them called colony collapse disorder. So I was reading about that as well, and I got interested, and I wanted to do something in response and to what was happening. And I wanted to do something physical, and I really wanted to also engage a number of different people in different fields. So I started reading about the native pollinators, and those include, butterflies and bees and moths and ants and beetles, etc. The more I got interested in them and the more I was reading about them, the more I started to feel that we should be supporting the native ecology on which our systems rest. So this project ended up sort of expanding from looking at farming systems to looking at wilderness systems, and then to looking at urban systems, and trying to weave all three into this one project. So the idea of this project is to take parking strips, which are mostly grass, meaning lawn grass, and turn them into pollinator-friendly gardens. This is the first garden that I did on the project. I started this project in 2008, and I did this test garden to really try out all the different plants that I had been researching and see what actually works in these conditions. So it's pretty much the worst soil conditions you can imagine. Just really hot and dry, and they're enclosed between the street and the sidewalk, so it just ends up being kind of harsh. So we had to make sure that each of the plants that were picked for the project could withstand those conditions without sort of needing excessive amounts of water and care.
We've noticed a lot more bees. I don't know I'm sure it's helping, but this is on a sunny, hot day. These are covered with bees, and different kinds.
Nice.
Wasn't there one that they saw that they hadn't seen in a long
Yeah, we
time?
found a new species.
Yeah.
The entomologist was very excited about
Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
it. Yeah.
It's great. I love taking care of it. We all do. Our cat loves it. A little weeding here and there, a lot of watering, but it's doing well. It's doing well.
We ended up focusing on non-natives on this end because they do a little bit better in sun. And so as a whole, I try to achieve 70 to 90% native plants in the project. But a lot of native plants in the Northwest tend to be a little bit rangy. And so they, when you group them, then they start to look a little more formal and a little more interesting aesthetically. But sometimes they sort of get floppy. And so I integrate them with these, I think, more showy non-native plants like the lavender and the thrift and the sage. You can also see that we have a low-growing Oregon grape in a large group here. And then in addition, some snowberry and some knick-knick. And then a little bit further down, we have a whole grouping of sword fern as well as what's called oxalis or wood sorrel. So this is Carrie and Matt's plot, and this is Carrie. And we just recently planted this one in, I believe, May, late May.
Yep.
And it's already growing in really well.
Well, it's been fun to be able to choose the plants and design the shapes of the beds, and you feel like it's your garden.
We have a pretty large plant list that we work with, and then with each homeowner we ask them if they have preferences within that list, because those are all pollinator-friendly plants, but then in addition they've been approved by the Department of Transportation. We ran the whole list by them to make sure everything sort of fit their height requirements. We had all this fun back and forth with the city on, whether or not it was okay to have snowberry here or not. So we've been very careful, as you can see in this plot, to keep everything under 2 feet. And then over here, we've started moving on to the larger plants. These are still rather small, but they will grow to be 3 feet high.
So when we bought our house a year or two ago, we heard through the neighborhood that we accidentally bought on the Pollinator Pathway, which was like the most exciting thing that we could have ever thought. We told our real estate agent that we might have paid more to live on the Pollinator Pathway.
We saw her down the street, so we ran over to say, hi, we live down the street and we would like to be a part of this.
Put us on the list.
Yeah.
It's really a mark of honor, and everyone that comes over, we share all about it, and the whole community is awed by your story and how you've contributed.
When you're out here working in the gardens, doing some weeding, doing some watering, you get the opportunity of meeting more neighbors as they come by. So it's been a great community project from that standpoint.
So sometimes people think that it's like a neighborhood cooperation thing, which is kind of lovely. And sometimes we just hang out and watch the butterflies and the bees. And
I'm really excited because I don't have to mow the lawn anymore, which was my favorite part.
there was that.
Other than being very beautiful, it seems very hardy and just sustains itself, with minimal watering after the first year. And that's great for people who want something beautiful that's kind of low maintenance too, that does a great thing for our community and the bees in Seattle.
Do you think that the Pollinator Pathway could become, once it's completed, a model for similar initiatives in Seattle or even beyond? Something where you would oversee additional initiatives like that? Or how do you envision the legacy of this, 5-10 years out?
Right. So for this particular project, my hope for it is that it becomes its own iconic piece, and that it's really for the city. People know where it is, and they can come look at it and learn from it. And then in addition, absolutely, I have fantasies of a national network. That would be lovely.
Right now, we're having this planter here at the Olympic Sculpture Park to introduce people to this idea and to this project, which exists in the middle of Seattle, but people would maybe walk along the street not even realizing what is going on. So there's an opportunity here for people to get much more engaged. Is there also a way in which people can sign up if they are interested in volunteering and kind of learning hands-on more about this project? Where would they go for that?
Absolutely. And they can go to the website, which is pollinatorpathway.com. And absolutely, I'd love to have more volunteers. It's great fun to be out there with other people. The more the merrier. We'd love to have more volunteers.
Yeah, it's excellent. My children tried this one afternoon last summer and had a blast, so I can highly recommend it.